Hello, college football fans, and welcome to the SEC Yesterday and Today, Episode 2. I'm your host, Bird LaCroix, and on this week's program, we're going to be looking at Auburn versus Clemson. We're going to take a look at this Saturday's game to be played in Clemson at Death Valley on Saturday night at 7 p.m. on ESPN. But before we do, let's take a look at this rivalry from past years. The first meeting occurred on October 28, 1899. Auburn won that game 34-0. The latest meeting, September 3, 2016, in which Clemson outlasted Auburn 19-13. There have been 50 total meetings between the two schools. Auburn leads the series 34-14 with two games ending in a tie. The largest margin of victory, Auburn 56, Clemson nothing in 1921. The longest win streak, it belongs to Auburn with 14 games from 1952 through 2010. The current win streak shows Clemson on a three-game roll. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is read to you an article that I found this past week while preparing for this week's podcast. It was written by a student athlete at Clemson. Her name is Kelly Gramlich. And the title of her article is Historic Clemson versus Auburn Rivalry is Good for College Football. It goes like this. The South is full of historically great college football rivalries. Alabama and Auburn, Clemson and South Carolina, Florida and Florida State, Georgia and Georgia Tech, Texas and Oklahoma. However, there are a few rivalries that still exist in the Deep South that do not get their rightful due, mainly because they are not played every single season. Even with their lack of regularity, they are chock full of contempt, animosity, and national relevance. One of those forgotten rivalries is between Clemson and Auburn. And much to the delight of fans of the ACC and the SEC Tigers, the two programs will face off this Saturday in Death Valley. You can't talk about Clemson and Auburn without emphasizing their shared history. The Clemson football program, which came into existence in 1896, fielded its first team under head coach Walter Riggs, an Auburn graduate and former Auburn football player. Including Riggs, the first three head football coaches at Clemson were Auburn graduates. The two Tiger programs first played on the gridiron on October 28, 1899, a contest that Auburn won handily 34-0. They would go on to play almost annually for the next 30 years, with Auburn dominating the young rivalry. The historical series was renewed after World War II, as Clemson and Auburn played every season from 1946 through 1955, with Clemson coming into its own, winning 5 of the 10 matchups. However, following Auburn's win over Clemson in 1955, the teams played each other only 8 times over the next 52 years before being paired up in the 2007 Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta. Ironically enough, the rivalry has been renewed recently under Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney, an Alabama graduate who seems to love competing against the school he despised while playing football for the Crimson Tide. On Saturday, Clemson and Auburn will take the field for the 5th time in the past 9 seasons. Recently, the modern Clemson-Auburn rivalry has become more nationally relevant than ever before. In 3 of the last 4 matchups, the winner has gone on to win their conference championship. Auburn in 2010, Clemson in 2011 and in 2016. In 2 of the last 4 matchups, the winner has gone on to win the national championship, Auburn in 2010 and Clemson in 2016. Additionally, not only has this rivalry become one involving championship teams, the games have also turned out to be entertaining and well coached. Since 1998, the two schools have played 6 times, and each program has come out victorious 3 times. The average margin of victory in those contests, just 6.2 points. In the spirit of history tending to repeat itself, I'll take Clemson by a touchdown on Saturday, and if possible, I'll take this rivalry being played more often than not. It's good for college football and good for two schools who share so much. I did enjoy that article, and I am going to have to disagree with Ms. Gramlich on the outcome, though, of course. Foresee our Auburn Tigers winning. We'll talk about that in just a minute with our guest, Joel Dale. And let me introduce Joel to you. He is the senior pastor at First Baptist Church of Pageland, South Carolina. He is the cross-country and track assistant coach for long-distance running for Central High School. He has both a bachelor's and master's degree from Clemson, and he was a manager for 2 years with the Clemson basketball team as an undergraduate. He also is the PA announcer on Friday night football games at Central High School. And we'd like to welcome my friend Joel Dale to the program. We are on, Joel. It's good to hear you.
Yeah,
How are you today?
Say it again.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great.
It's sun shining. It's cool.
Yeah.
I think, when I got up this morning, it was 54 degrees, and it's really pleasant. And it truly feels like football weather.
Yes, it does. Yeah. It was 52 here, so very similar, and nice and cool. So absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, of course, we're going to talk about Auburn and Clemson eventually, but we're going to do some predictions and talk about the ACC and the SEC and our two teams, Auburn and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, I want to talk about tradition a little bit.
Right.
And two of the greatest traditions in college football, of course, exist at Auburn and Clemson. We do our Flight of the War Eagle, and you do Touching Howard's Rock at Clemson.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about that, about the history and what that means at Clemson?
Oh, it's well, as you know, or most people, and I'm sure you do, the Brent Musburger probably put us on the map with that, with the most exciting 25 seconds. But I will say, as I lead into that, I was fortunate to go to Auburn last year when we played you guys, and the War Eagle is very impressive. It was extremely neat to see while we were down there. But we've someone brought Frank Howard. I don't remember who, but brought Frank Howard a rock back from the Death Valley, I guess, which is the desert. And for a while, my understanding is that it was a doorstop in his office. And Frank being Frank, the story I'm told anyway, is that one day he basically told somebody, "Hey, listen, find something to do with that rock." And it got put on the hill, and they started the tradition of if you're going to give. In fact, we play it before every game, Frank's voice, and and basically his voice over the loudspeakers. If you're not going to give 100, I think it's 110 or 150, something like that percent, then get your filthy hands off my rock. And so I guess that sort of hopefully sets the tone. But it's exciting. The balloons go up. They bust prior to that they bust all the players around. It's just become a big fanfare, and then the days of the big screen, they show the buses coming around, and of course the fans get excited. What will be neat about Saturday is it's very impressive, in my opinion, of course, at night, because you see all the lights surrounding the stadium and the bus lights, and they turn the lights on in the buses and video the players as they're coming around and things such as that. But it's an exciting time, and I think as you talk about tradition and the two schools, I think we have two of the better pregame traditions in the War Eagle, and of course our guys touching the rock and running down the hill in that way. But yeah.
We're going to move on to our next part of the program, which is any memories you might have on the rivalry that stand out in your mind. Auburn and Clemson have played intermittently through the years, and they've played 5 or 6 times in the last 9 years. Do any of the games, past or present, stand out to you?
Well, the only one I've seen live was last year, and that was a very neat, very close game. In fact, we made it very interesting at the end with Wayne Gallman could have stayed in bounds and helped to run the clock out, and he chose to step out of bounds and stop the clock. And it was, a missed opportunity you guys had that was the difference in the ball game. So a very good game. I think that another one that for me that stands out is when we almost beat you guys the year you won the national championship.
Oh, that was an exciting game
It
in
was.
overtime there in Auburn. And
Yep.
well, I thought the quarterback got dinged up a little bit, and your receiver was wide
Yep.
open in the end zone down there. And we held our breath, and that might have been the thing that helped get us started. One of the things that kick-started us toward that great run that we had.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very exciting game, and the I believe it was the next year you guys came as defending champions, and we were lucky
Yes.
enough to take that game. But, if I remember correctly. But,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was in 2011.
Yeah.
And I remember Dabo got really excited about that.
Yeah.
He should have
Yeah.
after the game. And well, we would love to return the favor at some point. I don't know if we will, but we're going to give it a shot.
They say history repeats itself. I'm hoping it doesn't in this case.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, let me ask you about now. We both Auburn and Clemson have one game under their belt.
Yep.
And neither of us played a juggernaut, but do you have any takeaways from the big win over Kent State that stand out in your mind? And did you see anything, strengths and weaknesses that might stand out to you?
Yeah, it was the first thing, and I even noticed it as the game began and was continuing. Was we didn't seem I'll phrase it this way, Bird. We seem to hit the ground running. Clemson is not known, or at least in my, and I've followed them since my childhood days of the 70s and all the way through going to school there and all that. But we don't start real fast. And it seemed to me, I was at the game, and it seemed to me that we were hitting on a good number of cylinders as the game started, and we've struggled in the past with that. So I was very impressed with Kelly Bryant. His accuracy passing was very good in my opinion. Again, as you stated, it's kind of hard to tell. I'm not denigrating Kent State in any way, but it was hard to tell if we were really playing that well or if they were just really struggling that much, and probably a combination of both. Weaknesses, we played so many guys. We at last count, I think we played 7 running backs, and two of them, and I don't again mean this negative, that I have no idea who they are. Had not heard of them, and we played multiple receivers and linemen, and defense we were constantly shuffling people in. So it's hard to tell. I think they only threw 4 passes. So our question mark, it seems annually coming in is the defensive backfield, and I know coming into Saturday, one of our backs is probable, questionable, something like that. Van Smith is they're not sure whether he's going to play or not. Last things I read, but so it's hard to tell with the weaknesses in that way. We stopped the run, and I was surprised that they didn't pass more. But I think our weakness, and I don't know if it's a weakness, our question mark continues to be when you lose someone the caliber of Watson. Are you going to be able to plug somebody else in? I think physically, yes. Watson had the ability he had was he would on a series look, and it seems to me anyway, throw a horrible pass and 3 and out, and he'd put it behind him and come back in and toss one down the field that would score a touchdown. So he didn't seem to let those things get to him. So I think that's the biggest thing for us.
Now is Bryant is he a freshman?
No.
Redshirt freshman?
No.
What year is he?
Let's see. I believe he's a junior.
Oh, okay. He's got a little experience.
Yeah, you can check me on that, but I believe the top 3 are my understanding of the depth chart is Bryant, and then the name's number 6. Now the name's gone from me. uh, and he's a redshirt freshman. It'll come to me. And then the third is Hunter Johnson, and I think they're all, at least going into the season, were pretty close. But Kelly got the nod from the things I read because of his, experience, and he would seem to be the one that was more consistent coming out of camp.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I like about Auburn too, is that we're pretty deep at quarterback,
Yep.
and Jarrett Stidham was a little rusty last week to begin with, but his quarterback rating jumped dramatically after he got that fumble and interception behind him, and neither one of them were particularly his fault. He was hit from the blind side on the fumble, and receiver cut off a route. But it still happened. After that, he seemed to gain his composure and really start to be the quarterback that I think he might be, even though we were about as vanilla, I think, as I've ever seen us. But that's to be expected. If you can beat a team like that, like Georgia Southern,
Yeah.
Which they are an FBS team,
Well,
and
yeah.
if you can beat them, and with base offense, base defense, and the thing that stood out to me, and dominate, our defense dominated them so well, then you don't want to show Clemson anything, and I'm sure Clemson didn't want to show Auburn anything, really. And but hopefully both of the teams are going to show a lot
Absolutely.
this week, though.
Yeah.
But it should turn out to be a real good one. And before we get down to predictions and talk about the game itself, I want to take a look, since we have an ACC guest with us this week. I'm going to make mention of the ranked teams in both Atlantic Coast Conference and the Southeastern Conference. In the ACC, coming in at number 18, you've got Virginia Tech, and they had a good win over West Virginia.
Yeah.
Number 17 was Louisville. They had a little bit of a struggle. Number 16 is Miami, and I believe Miami's game with Arkansas State has been canceled this week. And number 10 is Florida State. They remain in the top 10, and, of course, we all know what happened as they went up against Alabama on week 1. And then your Clemson Tigers are ranked 3.
Right.
Now, in the SEC, we got number 25 slipping in, and the Tennessee Volunteers with that dramatic victory over over Georgia Tech. Also in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Number 22, the Florida Gators, even though they lost to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Number 15, Georgia, who looked pretty impressive against a good App State. Auburn Tigers are in at 13. They didn't move. And number 12 is LSU. And, of course, number 1 is the University of Alabama. And now, let's get down to picking some ball games. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'll try.
All right. First of all, again, we'll go with the ACC, and we'll start over in Chapel Hill with the Louisville Cardinals coming to town. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think that even though Louisville struggled, perhaps a struggle can be good at the first part of the season. I think that Cal exposed some things with North Carolina, so I just think Louisville will win that ball game.
I think they are. I'm not going to do any picking against the spread, even though I might mention them. Louisville's 10-point favorite. And I certainly think they'll win. I wouldn't be surprised if they won by a couple of touchdowns, actually. But I do think they'll win the ball game.
Yeah, I do too.
And got a big rivalry up in the state of Pennsylvania, Pitt at Penn State. Penn State, a 21-point favorite. Yeah. Well, who do you like there?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, Pitt was our one loss last year, so they played well there. Did they lose? Did their running back graduate?
I think he did.
Yeah, I think he did too. I don't know, but
they had their guy leave and went offensive coordinator did.
That's right. Yeah, and that's in. Did you say it's in Penn State in Happy Valley?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in Happy Valley.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I hate to pick against us, but I'm gonna go with Penn State over Pitt in that one.
I will agree with you 100% on that one, and then we're going to bring it back up to Boston College. We'll head to the state of Massachusetts, where BC is a 2-point favorite over Wake Forest.
Yeah.
What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that's an interesting ball game. I think because just with the spread being as small as it is, and I guess I think they're pretty evenly matched. BC, I would imagine, is going to hold to traditionally what they have, and they're big and bulky up front. And I just think they'll overpower eventually. So I'm gonna, since it's a home game for them, I'll go with BC over Wake.
I have Wake Forest had a good win,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I'm like you. This is a really close game, as a 2-point line would indicate. But for some reason, I'm going to take the visitors in this one and go with Wake Forest.
Very good. Yeah.
All right. We move on to Duke, where the Northwestern Wildcats are going to be coming in for a Big Ten versus ACC match. And you're going to have David Cutcliffe and his gang down there. Or what do you see happening in that one, possibly?
Yeah, I like David, and I think he's. History tells us he's a good coach. I'm not a huge Big Ten fan, so I'm gonna probably let my heart say that Duke's gonna beat Northwestern.
Okay, well, I'm going to join you in that one, even though Northwestern is favored. I met David Cutcliffe down at the College Football Hall of Fame year before last. After I went to the SEC championship game, he and Tommy Tuberville and Bill Curry were there doing a program for USA Today, and they talked with everybody and signed autographs. And I liked every one of the guys. They really they were very friendly and outgoing and loved talking football. And I was impressed with Cutcliffe, and he's done such a great job all over, and I like it. Now, we go to the final game that we're going to talk about in the ACC, and that would be another Big Ten team, the Indiana Hoosiers, who played Ohio State and lost last week, coming into Charlottesville and the University of Virginia. What do you think there?
How close was the Indiana OSU game?
Well, it started off, OSU kind of walked away a little toward the end in the second half, as you would think, but it was pretty much of a scrap for a while.
I thought it was.
Indiana started off. Yeah, it was a pretty good ball game for a bit, and it was in Indiana, and Lee Corso was there getting used to coach there.
That's right.
And it was a lot of fun, but eventually, Ohio State won like you thought.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that much about UVA this year, but I'm going to go with the home team. And ACC. I'll say Virginia's going to beat Indiana.
Okay. Well, I'm going. That's tough. I hate to go against the home team, but for some reason I didn't like Northwestern coming into Duke as a favorite, but I do like Indiana coming in as a favorite in this one, and I don't know whether they'll cover or not, but I like them to beat the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at least we got some disagreement.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all right. I'm thinking we'll have at least one more.
We got one more coming for sure. All right. We'll start with a couple of teams that had big wins last week. South Carolina beat NC State, and Missouri whacked Missouri State, which they should have done, but they scored 72 points in the process, and they gave up 43. Now, South Carolina beat NC State 35-28, and that didn't necessarily surprise me. But they're going to Columbia. They're going to be at Missouri. What's your pick in that game?
If that were neutral or certainly in Columbia, South Carolina, I think I would choose South Carolina. But my memory tells me South Carolina struggles in the other Columbia. I don't know how accurate our memory is, but I remember a couple of games I think they were supposed to win and they didn't. Though I think they're riding high. I mean, I think there's much improvement from last year from what I saw in watching or listening to the South Carolina North Carolina State game. And I think he's got them believing that they are improved and can play. Let's see. But I think Missouri being home and the struggles that my memory tells me that South Carolina has had there, I'll go with Missouri.
All right, and we're going to disagree again.
Good.
I'm going to take the Gamecocks, even though a 2.5-point favorite. But like you said, Mustian does have them believing, and they're playing with some fire and some intensity. I think Missouri's still a little bit of an anomaly. They're they have such a great offense, which I thought they would. But then, that defense gave up
Yeah,
points.
giving up. Yeah.
But another close one, for some reason, I'll stick with the SEC. Okay, but we got some good games this week. The next one is TCU in Fayetteville at Arkansas, and TCU's a 3.5-point favorite. That's a tough one, and it's always a good ball game.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Yeah, I think that TCU. I think my memory is they start pretty good, and then maybe during the latter part of the season, sometimes, of course, we hit the meat of our schedule then anyway, but then sort of taper off. Even though it's in Arkansas, I think I'm going to say the spread's right. Didn't you say TCU was like 3.5?
Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm going to go with TCU in that one.
We are going to agree.
All right.
I like the Horned Frogs. Arkansas is tough. They started, again, like a lot of people last week in the first game, started slowly, but they came on strong at the end and beat FAMU. But I do like TCU, and we're going to find out really a lot about both teams on this week.
Yeah.
Now, one of the top games in the conference, in the SEC for that matter, is University of Georgia Bulldogs. They're going up to play Notre Dame in South Bend, and Notre Dame is favored. Both teams winning last week. Take a shot at it, friend.
Yeah, that's wow. Notre Dame, they snuck into the polls this week, didn't they?
I think they may have.
They were unranked preseason, and I think after their win, they were like 20, 25, 22, 20, in the 20s. But in that, and it's in South Bend. And I don't know, Georgia just sometimes, their big game. They just don't do what I think they could do in a big game, and sometimes they don't perform up to what they can. I'm going to go with Notre Dame in that game.
Okay. Well, we're going to agree again.
Okay.
And I don't know if I like them to cover, but that's not the point. Winners and losers, and I think Notre Dame will have just enough. They lost so many close ball games last year, and they have during the time Brian Kelly has been there, and his fanny's getting a little bit warm up there in South Bend.
Yeah. And
for some reason, I think they're going to pull this out. Now, if Eason can get cranked up, I don't know what his injury status is. He was limping there.
Right.
But they got the great running backs. Somehow, I think Notre Dame's going to pull it out and beat the University of Georgia.
Yep, agree.
Well, my friend, we've come down to the biggest game in one of the biggest in the country. I think the only one maybe that supersedes it would be Oklahoma at Ohio State.
Yeah.
We got the my Auburn Tigers coming in ranked number 13 and Clemson ranked number 3 at Death Valley, 7 o'clock Saturday night. We are waiting with bated breath to see who you might be. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, that's I think it's going to be a great ball game. I really do. I think that both teams are. The fear I have as a Clemson graduate and Clemson fan is revenge. Us coming down there and really sneaking away with one in Auburn, and then ending up winning. Though we, perhaps for most, if not all Auburn fans, surely they were cheering for us in Tampa last year, even though it's ACC, SEC. But and us being defending, that target being on your back, I think Auburn will be extremely motivated. Even, obviously it being a big national game. They would be anyway. So I think it's going to be good. I'm concerned about how you guys spread it out. I'm concerned. I think this guy is he from Baylor? Is that right? Or
Jared Stidham, the quarterback, and he transferred from Baylor. Sat out last year, and it showed he hadn't played in 2 years.
Yeah. So I think he's very good. You've got 2 to 3 great, really quality running backs. Another Cam in there, I think.
Cam Petway's supposed to be ready.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to be a close game. I think that I think both teams are matched real well. I, I do think that our defense, though our secondary, is a question mark only because they really haven't been tested. I mean, 4 passes don't tell you anything.
Uh-huh.
But we shuffle in so many guys on the defensive line, and I know a lot of people do. I really think Kelly Bryant's going to surprise some people. He had some laser passes the first half last week, and then he can pull it down and not only run smart, but he's got some really quick feet and some speed to him. And we've got three running backs ourselves that are, 4 really, that are, good quality running backs. I was very impressed with the Etienne, I think is how you pronounce his last name, from Louisiana. It's a true freshman that has that breakaway speed if he gets, past the linebackers. But so I think it's going to be a wonderful atmosphere. Last year in going to Auburn, I'd always been told Clemson is Auburn with lakes, or Auburn is, Clemson without the lakes anyway, being they're very similar towns. I found it to be a very similar atmosphere in that Auburn was extremely, nice, and the people there were nice to us. So I think it's going to be a great college atmosphere. I do think that because we're home and defending and all those things, that even though you guys have revenge, I got to go with my Tigers, and that would be Clemson, and say we'll pull it out. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be a mid-range scoring game, and I think we might win by less than 7, 3 to 4 points. But that's my take anyway.
Yeah. The line on this one started at 6.5 and bet down on Auburn to about 4.5.
Yep.
Is what I understand, and I think that's getting more in the accurate range of what it might turn out to be. But I do. Clemson does scare me to death. There's no doubt about it. There is a ton of talent on that football team, and particularly you mentioned on that defensive line. Clemson might be the best. Certainly might be the best defensive line Auburn plays against all year, and that includes the University of Alabama. Yeah. And they're going to be tough, and you win in the D-line. You win in the trenches. And I think if our offensive line can begin to gel and we find the right combination there and they're able to communicate and open some holes for those running backs, and Stidham can mix it up and do some vertical passing and some intermediate passing, and then use the entire field and throw a little bit of that run-pass option in there, I think we got a good chance to score some points, but I don't think either team's going to score a lot. And but I do like our defense. I like our D-line a lot. They were absolutely dominant last week. It's been years since Auburn has had a defensive line perform like that. And the linebackers, Trey Williams, Darrell Williams, and Deshaun Davis, and those guys are lights out. The secondary is very little thin in the secondary. They are extremely strong too. But you're going to give Clemson maybe 3-4 points on the road. I think that would put it right at dead even for me. And I'm like you. I figure at Auburn somehow is going to find a way to win in the end. And I'm even going to pick a score, something like 20-16.
Okay.
My Tigers, the orange and blue.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I think it'll. I mean, I think both our picks are indicative that it's going to be. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't come down to the end and it doesn't, isn't a close game. I'll be very surprised if one team just dominates the other.
I can't imagine. I
don't see how that could happen with the talent both teams have. But it'll be a great game.
Well, it will be. Now, what do you hear about weather? You guys okay over there right now with Irma?
It's supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be. From what I've looked up thus far, is clear, sunny skies, even cooler atmosphere, even though it's the second ball game of the season. So I think it's going to be, as you indicated when we first started, or first we're talking, is that we're feeling football weather right now. So I think it's going to be that type of temperature and that type of weather.
Yeah, I'm getting anxious now. I'm ready to play this thing.
Absolutely.
Well, Joel, I appreciate your coming on the program so much and spite of our glitches and so forth, we got there, brother.
We did. We did. As I told you earlier, I'm computer illiterate, but I hope my orange and purple do better than I've done.
Well, it's been a great pleasure.
You
And
too.
if you would tell us where people can find you
Yeah,
out there.
absolutely. Well, let's see. Email is J, that's my first initial, JD as in dog, ALE at FBC Pageland. That's PAGELAND.com. And as I referred earlier, the only social media right now that I'm on is Facebook, and they can find me in that by my first and last name. That's JOEL, and last name's D as in David, ALE. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, sir. And you can find me as always. I'm Autull, at Autull on Twitter, AUTULL, and my personal website, private domain, is birdlacroix.com, where I have sports columns and personal blogs on there. And of course, at campuspressbox.com. And once again, this has been episode 2 of the SEC yesterday and today. We appreciate you listening to us, and be sure to love your neighbor. Take care.
Amen.